Hello? Hello?
Hello there.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Cool. We're we're starting a little early, but we're also working with new technology here.
Got it.
So I wanted to make sure it worked out well. But I think we're good to go.
All righty.
So how is everything?
Um, I'm so excited.
Good. Yeah, me too. We're on a bit of a delay, so it's just recognizing on Facebook that we're streaming.
Got it.
But otherwise, I think everything is good.
All righty. Peachy. So yeah, whenever you're ready, I'm good to go.
Yeah. No, I first of all, for those of you who don't know out there, I'm talking with Titanosaur, uh, who I think that it's one of the better descriptions of your music that I read on Bandcamp, where it was Monster Magnet, Red Fang, and Motorhead and Ramones over a bed of Black Sabbath.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I heard your podcast this morning. And yeah, I heard you read that, and that's I'm glad that the music sounds that way. Cool.
yeah, no, it's great. It's great. And for those of you who also don't, I feel like I'm going back in time again, but you and I attended well, not high school, but we were at the same school for a little while, way back in the day.
Yes, yes. Collegiate
Yeah,
school for boys.
the collegiate school for boys. Yeah, and I remember.
Okay. Thank you. Excuse me. Pardon me. Thank
Thank you.
you. My dinosaurs like take over every once in a while.
That's all good. But yeah, I mean, I when I was gonna put one of your songs on the podcast, and I looked up and saw who was in charge of the production, I recognized the name, and I thought to myself, um, there really can't be that many people with that exact name unless it's a really popular name and I'm just unaware of it. And I was like, but I know you also live in outside of Manhattan, so I thought perhaps it may be someone else. But then when I posted about going back to do an author's night and you commented on it, I was like, oh, it is the same person. And then I just remember again, I said this when we were texting, but I remember you had long hair back in the day.
Oh yes, I had long hair until about 12 years ago,
Okay.
14 years ago. Yeah, no, collegiate. I went to collegiate from second grade till eighth grade. I lived in Queens. I was one of the scholarship kids, so I was one of the poor kids amongst all the rich kids. Um, and yeah, so I was the one with the long hair and my jean jacket with a Megadeth patch on the back and earrings.
Which which I didn't remember the jean jacket. I feel like that's something that would have, although back in the day I didn't have the appreciation for the music that I do now.
Right.
So and I was probably more concerned about just making it through every day myself. So
Yeah, it was interesting times. My
that's
class, yeah, my class was. I think it was a pretty good, cool class. I really liked the kids in that class.
well, I mean, I think I mean, I was friendly, I think, with maybe one kid in your class that like who I knew personally. The like I could probably rattle off a couple of names, but just people that I sort of knew in passing, because it was a pretty small place, and everyone sort of knew everyone. But I'm just gonna, as I speak with you, I'm just making sure, since we're all, it's much easier to do it like this than previously we had to be on a phone. Now we can
Ah,
sort of stream through Zoom, so it's easier to do it. I'm on my computer. I couldn't be on the computer before, but but it's streaming to Facebook now, but it's on like a few minute delay. So like you've like on Facebook, you've just sat down to take the microphone. So I'm gonna circle back and see if there are comments, if people have questions. But yeah, so you've got I think three albums, Titanosaur on Bandcamp. There's one, two, and then the most recent one was Messages.
Correct. Yeah. Three Titanosaur albums. Um, Started the first one in 2018, 2019, and then this year. The 2019 or 2020. Anyway, yeah, three albums and at least 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Gotcha. Now there's certainly time. Now I know you left before high school, or you went to a different place.
Yeah, yeah. For
Now
high school, we moved. Yeah.
when did the music come into, like, had that always been something that you were dabbling in along the way?
Well, I wasn't I was my mother had got me an acoustic guitar, so I was taking classes because at collegiate you had to take violin or something like that. So I had learned violin in the earlier grades, and then I wanted to do guitar, so she got me an acoustic guitar. So I was taking guitar lessons. But those were, where I learned the prerequisite Stairway to Heaven, some Simon and Garfunkel, and stuff like that. It wasn't very exciting. I wasn't very excited, but so I didn't really get into the whole making music and writing songs thing until I got an electric guitar, and that was probably in ninth grade. So I don't know, how old is that? 14, 15,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, I would say probably 14, 15. So that's when you started sort of developing your own sound and feel and playing original stuff?
Yeah, that's definitely when I started. I So I have Marfan syndrome, and one of the things with Marfan syndrome is that you got really long fingers. Um, I've gained a lot of weight since then, so they're a little pudgier, but they used to be a lot thinner and really long. Um, so I learned how to make bar chords just with two fingers. Apparently, other people need three or all four, but I just use two fingers. And at the same time, I learned that the Ramones were just bar chords every song. So that blew my mind away, and I could play every song. And so that's how it started. And I don't know if it's because it's a New York thing, because a lot of other bands from New York, I hear the same thing, the same sound when I hear them play. But something it's a lot dirtier sound than I hear from other people. And that's just how I play. I don't know if it's because I'm a Ramones fan or because all the years of traveling in the subways, but there's something dirty about how I play guitar, and I like it. And that's when I started hearing my style was, yeah, back there.
Yeah, well, I would agree with you. There is sort of a New York sound. Maybe it does come from the subways, or or just some, but it's not as clean. I think there are a lot of other bands that I've heard, especially if you're gonna list Ramones and Motorhead as two of your primary influences. Um, and of course, you had mentioned Marfan syndrome. I know Joey Ramone had that.
Well, I actually worked for the Ramones for about a year. And my recollection is that he didn't have it.
Okay.
He definitely had cancer, and he died of cancer. But I don't think he had Marfan syndrome. Um, what musician? I remember there was a musician that well, I mean, Paganini is thought to have had it. But
Gotcha. Well, yeah, I had always thought that the lead singer, uh, who is Joey, right? I
yeah,
had
yeah,
always heard that he had it, but I know Vincent Schiavelli, who is an actor,
yeah,
who was in Ghost and a couple of other movies. I know he also had it as well.
yeah. He
Um,
definitely did. Yeah.
but yeah, I know. I remember. My memories of you were being really tall, which I have learned subsequently is one of the uh, not side effects, but one of the indicators that it's might be possible.
Right. Yeah. Height is definitely one of them. Being super thin is another one. I mean, there are a lot of other physical features, long face, super long fingers. So yeah, there are other physical features.
Well, I mean, the super long fingers have come into, that's sort of been able to help you develop the sound for the albums. And, it was funny because when I was looking through that list, that's sort of right in my wheelhouse of, bands that I enjoy listening to. Um, Red Fang, Motorhead, Ramones, Black Sabbath, that's sort of like going down the list. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really get into those bands until much later. I was more of a classic rock kid growing up, and then I sort of segued, I think, into punk, and then eventually just kept with the trajectory.
Yeah. I grew up with in my grandmother owned a house in Queens, and my mother and I lived on the first. My mother, dad, and I lived on the second floor. Then he left, and we moved up to the attic. But my uncles lived there too, and they had a huge record collection. My uncles were only 14 years older than me, so I grew up with their record collection, which included Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep, Led Zeppelin, Sex Pistols. They loved music. They were all around in the clubs in New York City at the time. That would be mid '70s, late '70s. So they had all this stuff coming out at that time. The first rap records, all of that stuff. So I grew up with that, and I just gravitated towards Queen and the Ramones. Those two are the records that I played the most. Um, uh, what is it? Sheer Heart Attack, Brighton Rock. For some reason, that song on that album was the one that I played over and over again. The stereo effect that you get from there, and then the Ramones. Which album was it? I don't remember the names of their albums, but one of their albums that I kept playing over and over again. And then Black Sabbath Paranoid was the other one that they had. Um, and I always gravitated toward the faster songs. There's something about the speed at that time, anyway, that I preferred. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I've it's funny because I've sort of switched to more of the slower stuff lately. Although I still, if you throw on, uh, I myself had a ruptured brain aneurysm in 2018. So one of the things I've recently done is I've written a memoir about that, but it also covers, a bunch of different other aspects of my life. And talking about music and especially metal, I talk about how that has always been not a difficult thing when it comes to dating or relationships, but um, that's something you don't reveal on the first date that you love to listen to sleep. That's something you sort of maybe wait till the second or third date to bring that up. But
well, yeah, I've been married for 20 years, and my wife was my boss at the time when we met. And it was funny because as soon as she walked in, I said, I'm going to marry her. Um, but I sort of sneaked my way into her life, kind of thing. I sort of edged my way in. Um, and AC/DC had just done their uh, Black Ice album, and they were going to go on tour. And I loved AC/DC. Never saw them live, so I really wanted to go. And I was in my mid-20s at that time, and I was like, okay, I have the money, so and I can go whenever I want. So uh, so I bought the tickets, and I was going to go with my cousin because I didn't know. My wife would, not my wife at the time, she would be in her office all the time playing classical music. So I thought, oh, she just likes classical music. But um, my cousin then said that she couldn't go, and I got really upset at work. And my wife was overhearing it, and she was like, "What about me? This is hard rock, and you always listen to." She said, "AC/DC is my favorite band." So so we both went, and that was the beginning. So that helped me know that she likes harder stuff, so that was more comfortable for me.
yeah, that's great, and it all worked out really well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually was dating someone briefly for about a year who I took to go see Black Sabbath on their what ended up being their final tour. So I managed to see them, which was great in Virginia. Bill Ward wasn't playing with them
Mm.
at the time, but I sort of still figured, it was
Oh yeah.
better than nothing. And yeah, that was one of those things where I could tell that she really didn't care for the music at all, but she was really doing me a solid by going. And since I don't have a car, or I only have a permit, she drove, so it was like, she was really in the end. Um, of course, I ended up paying her back by going to some show that was at one of the I forgot who even played, but it was wasn't really my. It was sort of like something you might hear on the top 40,
Mhm.
that if that even still exists anymore. But yeah, so that's I mean that's a great that's what I mean I've found pretty frequently when you try to sort of gauge what people like, just by listening to some of their music. Like, it turns out AC/DC was one of her favorite bands, yet she only listened to classical at work. Um, when I was teaching, I would frequently play, heavy metal in class and stuff like that. And most of the students wouldn't like it, but they were there on my time. So that's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
so
when
yeah,
I moved to Connecticut, and I sort of tried to, in I'm very shy, and it's very difficult for me to know how to interact with people, and so I tried to make a concerted effort when we moved to start new, to be a I was able to be a different person, and so I found my clique there, um, and it was the heavy metal kids. Um, so yeah, we would run around the halls with our leather jackets and scaring everybody. And actually, it turned out that the other one of the other kids was really cool, and I've never been able to find him since. He was huge too. He was gigantic, but that was just because genetics for him. But,
gotcha. There's a photo I have in an album that I've been meaning to find. When my brother also went to collegiate, and he graduated in 2003, I think. Um, and I took him to Madison Square Garden to see Motorhead and Iron Maiden and Dio.
mm,
They were playing, and my brother was a big Iron Maiden fan. So I think, unfortunately, we missed most of the, I think Motorhead went on first, and we missed most of their show. But we saw Dio's, we saw Iron Maidens, and I have a photo with a kid, like a high school kid, who was next to, he had the seat next to me, who had a mohawk and a jean jacket on with all the patches, and I looked like I should be doing a Dockers commercial. And it's just, it was one of my favorite sort of things to look at, because you have the who people assume will be at an Iron Maiden concert in that kid, and who will also be there, in me. So it was just a cool sort of way that the scene is really all inclusive.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
one of the things why this group was put together was just to sort of give a platform for anyone who dug the music, which turned out to be a pretty varied group of people.
well, it's interesting. So I'm not just Titanosaur, but I also do the Ray Gun Girls, and so we did. The Ray Gun Girls has been around since 2004, and the interesting thing is that we would play goth clubs because it's very goth, and not be accepted, as well as when we would play heavy metal shows.
Hmm.
So that, yeah, I find that very interesting. That
Yeah, I mean, I on when I play stuff on the podcast, I'll always say, it's just easier to classify music for, to keep it organized, but really all these labels exist just to give people something to argue about. That's I mean that's how what I've always said. So I've always found it strange that, certain things won't be accepted by one group. Um, I remember hearing someone once say that they didn't like the phrase guilty pleasure
Hmm.
because, they were like, if it's a pleasure, how can it be guilty? Um, but yeah, I'm sorry. Give me one sec. My brother is calling me, so I'm going to text him to say that I'm in,
Busy.
indisposed, talking to a fellow alum. But so yeah, so the high school was when you started to kind of noodle around on the electric. When did you and you said Ray Gun Girls is since 2004?
Yeah, since 2004. So that was way after. When I went to college, I went to Columbia University,
Okay.
and I met this guy there, Jamie, and we just happened to hit it off musically. He liked all the same different bands, and he was a great musician, drummer, keyboardist. He loved computers, everything. So we hit it off, and we were friends all the way through for many years. And we were in bands together, lots of different bands, punk band, and then we ended up creating the Reagan Girls. Um, so yeah, that happened way after college.
Gotcha. So you were in, because I know Titanosaur is pretty much a one man project, and Ray Gun Girls, I guess, is a duo. Or
Reagan Girls used to be, it used to be Jamie and me, and then we were just going to be doing a studio album, but it came out so well, and I was sending it around to some friends, and they were really digging it. And I was like, well, let's play it live because I love playing live. But so I needed to create a band, and then my best friend, who's also been in a lot of bands with me and Jamie, came and played bass, and we sort of became a live band. And that went on for a few years with lots of different people coming in and out. Um, and in 2009, when I had my third heart surgery, that's when it was decided that I just can't play live anymore. So the band sort of fizzled. But it was something that I created, that I came up with the name, and so I wanted to keep it going because I can't stop making music, and I liked that kind of music, that sort of goth, darker, serious kind of a little bit electronic type of music. So that's when I started doing it by myself. So that was the first one man band that I started doing in 2009. And then Titanosaur started, yeah, in 2018, 2017, something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, the last conversation I had was with the lead singer Nikita from a band called Sunseeker, and I was telling him that one thing when we were talking about being creative and sort of the drive that you need to see things through, and how can you impart that to younger people. And I was telling him I would always tell my students, if it's bubbling up inside of you and it has to get out, then that's really the deciding factor. Don't think about it. But if it's so that was one of those things where, it seems like even though it's not the best thing to play live, you still have to make music. Um, so yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, you got to find a way. What happened was basically I had our last live show was in late 2008, I think, or early 2009, and I was just in so much pain. My legs, something a little separate than my heart, but it uh, that I was like on painkillers the whole time. But that ended up being our last show, and so I didn't play anything for like before the surgery, after the surgery, and then I realized I was in a deep depression, and it was because I hadn't picked up my guitar, hadn't made any kind of music. So I in 2010, I picked it up again because I found this community February album writing month that happens every February, and that you try to write 14 songs in the shortest month of the year, write, record, and produce, and the whole thing. So that reignited the creativity, and saw and made me see that the whole depression thing was because I hadn't been playing this music that I had to get out. So yeah, definitely, you got to find a way to do what's bubbling in there. Got to find a way to get it out.
Well, it's interesting you brought up that I the last few years have been really surreal for me, with regard to just recovering, not only physically, but just sort of emotionally, it's been a difficult thing. And that's one of doing this group, being able to still write. Um, those are sort of things that I look like stave off depression, stay engaged, find joy in just the process of doing it.
Mhm.
So it's great to talk to you about this and kind of hear the confirmation that that's a universal thing. Um, that was always another thing that was helpful to know, that it wasn't just me, feeling this way.
Mhm.
But what's I mean, and it's interesting because I went for a walk with my mom this afternoon, and she was asking me who I was going to be talking to later, um, and I had said, he went to the same school I did, um, and he's a musician. He's in a band called Titanosaur, and I said that one of the great things about technology these days is that you can put together everything, yourself. Like, you can write, you can record, you can do all this stuff, and you don't really need to book studio time or to have a producer or any of this. You can do it all. The platforms exist, the technology exists, so it's great. I mean, I think a lot of people wouldn't take that step to put their music out, um, on their own, but it's great to sort of see you, following through on this decision, on this drive.
It is a scary thing to do that. And I listened back to the recordings, to the Reagan Girls albums from 2010 and 11, 12, the first three that I did after when I started learning how to record, and they sound horrendous. But but you got to start somewhere, and you got to learn how to do it. I remember that first album, which is a self-titled. Well, no, actually, the Taker was the first album that I recorded after my surgery, and the surgery that I had in 2009 cut through my ribs to get to my heart. So they also messed up my scapula. So my strumming arm was out of whack, and I had to go to physical therapy. So I couldn't play as fast as I used to. So the first album I recorded was a very slow, more bluesy album, and I worked on that and worked on it and worked on it. And at one point, I said, I gotta send it. I gotta do something with it. And even though it wasn't perfect, I sent it using, at that time, TuneCore. Yeah, at some point you just got to say, "Fuck it," and leave it up to the fates or whatever.
Yeah, well, I think when I would teach writing, or even when I would work on my own stuff, or help workshop other people's things, it was always interesting to see people who had difficulty pulling the trigger. There was always more corrections to make, or more development to do, and I think that's one of the things that you sort of learn and feel more comfortable with, is the more you do it, just whether you can recognize that you're no longer going to be moving forward, you're just going to be moving sideways. And it's great. Like, again, I think that's one of the really great things about my doing the deep dive on YouTube to find bands, is discovering bands like Titanosaur, where it's sort of a start to finish project, that it's just one person doing everything, and just motivating out there. Oh, by the way, Heather wrote "Nothing is ever perfect," and yeah, I just see, again. I don't know if she's. I'm pretty sure she's commenting on what we just said, but because of I don't. Did you ever see the movie Scream?
Oh yeah,
You remember when they have the news van set up, and there's the delay,
yeah.
and that. So that's what this feels like. right about now. Although I don't, if you see someone come out of the closet behind me, just let me know. But yeah, I tend to make a lot of pop culture references. That's my go-to.
No
But
problem. I got it.
yeah, yeah. Well, the memoir that I wrote originally had footnotes to explain all there were like 250 pop culture reference
Jeez.
footnotes, and then it got too difficult to edit that way. So I
Mhm.
ended up removing the footnotes and just put them in the body of the text. But yeah. So okay, so Raygun Girls, you're still making music for that. Um, it's probably may not be the primary focus.
Right, exactly. It's not the primary focus. I mean, I've spent so many years doing that. And the whole idea behind Titanosaur was I wanted to do something that's fun because Raygun Girls is very serious. And I sort of still feel that Raygun Girls is a certain style. And so like that album, The Taker that I did, it's not really a very Raygun Girls album because it's very blues, um, uh, and not very electronic. But that's all I could do at the time. So I really want to separate the styles. Um, and Titanosaur is getting a lot more attention, and I'm having a lot more fun with it. So I think I've reached the point where I want to have more fun and there's less angst to get out,
Sure.
like I
Well,
had with
it's a. I
Reagan
mean,
Girls.
it's a. When I think back, there's a Red Fang video that I remember watching. I mean, a couple of them. They made some really funny videos, but one of them, I think. Oh, it's not them. It's Municipal Waste, or not? No, it's
Oh,
Iron Reagan. That's it. Iron Reagan goes to get beer at a 7-Eleven, and they run into the Red Fang guys who are also there to get beer. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like Titanosaur, you're really on. It's like a good, it's like good music. It's a fun time. Um, I haven't really listened to Raygun Girls as often, so I can see how it would be more enjoyable um, to do stuff that's a little bit more lighthearted at this point. But
yeah, and it's interesting that saying Titanosaur is more lighthearted, but then the second album, number two, cleverly titled two, um, that is a super serious album because that was I was dealing with my mother's death at the time, and so that one's really about just dealing with depression in general. Um, but yeah, so that was a little sidestep for Titanosaur, but the music fits, so I call it Titanosaur.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's the and I hate continuing to bring this back to me, but I split my memoir into a tragedy section and a comedy section, and I mentioned how very easily events in the comedy section could have been in the tragedy section and vice versa. It's all really just a matter of time and perspective.
Mhm.
So I think overall Titanosaur has more of a, Ramones, Motorhead kind of. I mean, not that they were lighthearted per se, but
Right,
I
right.
I don't think they took themselves as seriously, and I think you could tell that they were having a good time, uh, which is very much apparent in the music that you're putting out. Even if the subject matter on some of the songs is much more serious. Um, so these days, are you so in terms of getting inspiration? Is it like do you still look back, like, is Marfan syndrome an inspiring sort of thing? Um,
Well, well, yeah. I mean, it's something I live with every day. I have severe scoliosis, so you can't really tell when you look at me, but I have a severe S curve, and I actually put it up on Instagram during February, which is also Marfan Awareness Month. I actually put up the X-ray of my back, and you can see it's like just an
yeah,
S.
I saw it. It is something.
So, and then that one you can also see the staples on the in my chest. Um, so yeah, it's something I live with. Like that severe S curve causes pinched nerves, so we got leg pains and some weird pains here and there. Um, and also my heart's a constant thing. It's something I'm constantly dealing with. Is that pain that I'm having, me having a heart attack? Is that a sign I should go to the emergency room or not? So that's a constant thing that I deal with. So yeah, that's always on the top of my mind. Death. I deal with death constantly in a lot of my lyrics. Um, but yeah, last year I actually was concentrating more on an autism diagnosis that I got a year ago, December. Um, to me, it made sense and it makes sense. And I kind of knew 14 years ago that I was autistic. So like songs like Monster are specifically about that. Titanosaur song Monster. Um, there are a lot of things that I do like that, and so a lot of the lyrics lately seem to be dealing with that kind of thing, more of the exploring what it is about me that is more autistic, and not just weird. So
Gotcha. Well, and again, let me not that this needs to be prefaced at all to the listener or the person who's watching along here, but while the subject matter in a lot of the songs may be very serious or dealing with serious things, that it's not all really dark, minor chords and what have you. It is, think Ramones and Black Sabbath, or Motorhead on a bed of Black Sabbath.
yeah, like the Ramones have a few political songs, even though they were all over the place politically inside the band, but they do have some political songs, and it's still fun.
Right.
So
Like the
yeah,
KKK took my baby away.
or Howling at the Moon,
Yep.
or
Or Bonza goes to Bitburg,
Bonzo Goes to Bitburg. Yep.
which I actually just read that that was, they wanted that to be the original title, Bonza Goes to Bitburg, but Johnny was a huge supporter of Reagan, so he said, "Can we have it called My Brain Hanging Upside Down?"
Yeah.
So they put the Bonzo to Bitburg in parentheses.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think Joey was pretty liberal, and I know Johnny was a hardcore conservative,
Yep.
even within the band. And yeah, I can only imagine that must have made for just interesting times.
Oh, I bet.
But
Yeah, they didn't talk to each other outside of the band. They would get together, rehearse, and then go their separate ways, get together, play, and go their separate ways. They didn't really talk to each other
I
outside of
remember
that.
I watched a the Pearl Jam 20 documentary that Cameron Crowe did,
Hmm.
and Chris Cornell was being interviewed, and he said that he was talking to Johnny Ramone, and he was telling Johnny how all the Seattle bands were very supportive of each other. Like if a band showed up and they'd forgotten gear, another band would let them have it. They were always going to each other's shows. And Johnny was like, really, it was the opposite in New York. We would try to sabotage, everyone's gig. You hated the other bands. So
It's
that
war.
that seems
Yeah.
to be the overarching theme of their. But yeah, I mean, they made catchy songs, and
Yeah, well, and that's what drew me to them in the first place, is the catchy songs. They were just trying to make pop music. They were always just trying to emulate the 50s pop bands, really.
yeah.
Like Rock and Roll High School and Rockaway Beach,
Hmm.
songs like that. So yeah, that's all Johnny ever wanted to do. So
And I feel like since we're getting into stuff that I had just learned recently, but I didn't even know. I guess Paul McCartney used to use the name Ramone when he would check into hotels, and Dee Dee was the one who took the stage name Dee Dee Ramone, and then suggested they all become. I mean, I'm sure you know all this, but it's nice to be able to kind of recite stuff that I'm familiar with that I just learned.
yeah, I've studied the punk music and the history of punk and New York punk and West Coast punk and the Ramones and specifically and stuff like that. So yeah, I like to they were one of the bands that I did a deep dive on a long time ago. So I know a lot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that I mean, a very. I guess if you're going to be influenced to want to pick up a guitar and learn how to play, they're sort of one of the best, role models to have in that regard.
Well, I think if you want to learn how to play fast, and if you want to learn how to play fast, so not take like years to be able to play fast,
Right.
then Johnny and his way of strumming is a great way to start. And yeah, the fact that they only used for the most part 4 chords in every song, it's also good to get comfortable with the idea that sometimes your songs are gonna, or little parts of your songs are gonna repeat themselves, and that's okay, as long as you keep moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that certainly makes sense. Um, I think that they're a great sort of example of exactly, I don't think they would have second guessed themselves if a song needed to be polished more, that whole sort of getting caught in the headlights that some people do. Like, I think they were about, the song is 58 seconds long. Let's play it loud, let's play it fast, and let's move on to the next song.
Yeah, keep moving
Like,
on.
there's something to be said about that.
Oh yeah.
But
and,
yes,
and their live shows were amazing. I mean, just the fact that the recorded song would sound great, but then live they would speed it up, so a 2.5 minute song would be 1.5 minutes, so that they could fit in like 40 songs in a 1 hour set. And it's just bam bam bam, it's insane. I saw them like 3 times. It was great every time.
yeah, they unfortunately I never got to see them play. But again, at the time, that they were playing, I wasn't as big of a fan. So either way, but so Messages just came out with Titanosaur. Are you working on? I know February was a month-long writing and composition. Are you planning on putting out another album soon?
So yeah, every February for the past 10 years or so, I write music for an album. And this year was no different. Unfortunately, I had tons of computer problems and other stuff going on here at home, which with changes in work schedule and all that. So it made it really hard to record enough songs for an album. But um, I have enough for maybe an EP that I'm thinking of putting out. Uh, from the suggestions that I've gotten from a few other bands and some PR people, uh, I should release music earlier, because I've always been recording during February and then releasing it like in December, in the end of the year. And all of them were like, well, indie bands, it's really hard to release something at the end of the year because that's when a lot of the major labels do it. So try to do it sooner in the year so that you can actually get reviews and stuff like that. So I might try to put together an EP. I just wrote a new song today. That's one of the problems with being a one-man band and having your own studio in your house, is it's hard to stop writing so that you can then concentrate on polishing and finishing and getting something out there. But I do want to try to finish something by the end of March to have to release within the next 2 or 3 months, something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would imagine also that a lot of the time is taken up in terms of, promoting your stuff and getting out there and being on social media. Those were all things that I never knew about or never really appreciated. Especially like when I was in grad school for writing, I was like, oh, all I have to do is focus on writing, and that's it. I can write and submit, and then that's it. And then slowly I started to learn, no. These days you need to do PR and marketing and social media and understand the dynamic of what the landscape looks like now that everyone has the technology.
Yeah.
Everybody can do it. Which is, it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I was talking to somebody else in an interview a few months ago about how yeah, before you had the gatekeepers, the publishing houses for books or the record labels. So they were also the tastemakers in a sense, because they had control, but they also did weed out a lot of the crap. And now you don't have that. So you have to filter it out yourself, so that you get barraged with 100 bands, 25 or 50 of which are really good, but you still got to filter through the rest of it to get there. So it's really hard to make yourself stand out. And one thing that I learned a few years ago, which really helps with social media, is that you really only need about a half hour on each of the, now that there's so many services, a half hour on each service. But interacting with people, actually interacting, not just pressing the like button, but actually interacting with people for about half an hour every day is enough.
Well, I remember one thing I noticed that you did that I thought, that it sort of caught me off guard, because you're the first person that's ever done it, is just saying thank you for the follow.
Oh yeah.
Like on, so, which I thought was such a simple thing that probably goes a really long way. I mean, it certainly did with me, but I just remember, okay, this is such an easy thing that why don't more people just take the time to say thank you?
And I mean, I'm not giving anything away. It's automated. So I have that automated, but if somebody responds to the thank you, then I'm going to answer.
Sure.
Because, that means, okay, they saw it and they want to interact. All right. So I'm going to respond.
It's those little things
Yeah.
that go a really long way in differentiating yourself, and just being making it a more pleasant experience. I think unfortunately so much of it is just a negative experience on both sides, that when you can say, hey, I got to thank you, even if nothing comes from it, then it's still a great business practice.
Yeah. I mean, I am one who really believes in, I don't know if you want to call it karma or whatever, but you put good out in the world and you're going to get good back. I mean, that's just how it works. It's an energy thing. I don't know, but that's how it works, and that's how it's been working.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. But it's, I mean, I'm glad that you're as prolific as you are in terms of every February working on stuff. I mean, it would seem to me that it's not like a chore. Like, this is stuff that you love to do. I mean, that's how I view all the creative stuff I do, is like, the day that it becomes a chore, I know that I'm going to have to revisit why I'm doing it. But it sounds like this is a really integral part of just being creative in every day.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it did become a chore about 4 years ago. It started becoming a chore, and then with the Reagan Girls, I just started putting out 5 years ago. I just started putting out singles, because I couldn't get, I wasn't, I didn't have enough ideas. It wasn't flowing really well, so a lot of it felt forced. But I felt like I had to put something out to keep the name out there. And for about a year, that was pretty forced. And then I sort of put that collection, those songs, into a collection called Ghost 15, which I feel is very a rough album. The pieces don't really fit together. And it was sort of around then when I started talking to my family and my kids, and it was like, wait a minute, I want to do something fun. And so that really started with the name. The name came first. So I started talking about what's going to be a fun name that's heavy, that sounds heavy, that sounds monstrous, but that's not too serious. And so we went through a whole bunch of dinosaur names, because that sounded like a good place to start. And a lot of dinosaur names are taken. So it was hard to find.
I know. Yeah, I had a podcast episode that was just dinosaur names. It was like,
Yep.
Brontosaur, Tyrannosaur, like all the ones you would expect.
Yeah, I love the name Acid Mammoth. It's a great name for a band.
Yeah, tons of mammoths.
Yes, there was a band named Stegosaur, and they changed their name. And I was like, why'd you change your name to something that has nothing to do with dinosaurs? But so then we came up with Titanosaur, and so that sort of started the ball rolling, even with new Raygun Girls music. The Orphan album came out right before I finished this Messages album. Um, so it sort of unblocked whatever was going on, being able to have fun, kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. You know, sometimes even though it's still you're still being productive and it's still worthwhile, that sometimes you can just go into a corner and need something to shake it up a little bit. But I'm glad you discovered and eventually, started doing music as Titanosaur, and that seemed to be the what solved the dilemma.
Oh yeah, and uh having the name of Titanosaur allows me to sort of do that. The Reagan Girls was supposed to be an anonymous thing. It was supposed to be a studio thing. The whole idea was that we were going to make music and we were going to get in touch with artists and they were going to write a comic book kind of thing and we were going to be the soundtrack. And as we were getting more notoriety and noticed more, that's when Jamie left the band and I was left to like sort of keep it all together on my own. And so that's when that part fell apart, finding artists. So having Titanosaur, I get to have this alter ego of this dinosaur, which allows me to be silly and allows me to do crazy stuff on Instagram and TikTok with the mask on and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a lot more fun, and I'm glad that it's a possibility that I found.
Definitely. That it reminds I interviewed a guy named Sean Adams who is in a group called a one man project Orcumentary, where he's it's basically all just orc related music, and he's created a character named Orc Adams. So he plays keyboards, and it's usually just he's playing the songs, but he says there's a lot of banter, like audience participation and banter when he's in character.
Mm,
So he says that character allows him a lot of a lot more freedom to explore whatever. So it's not simply just him writing Lord of the Rings inspired songs. There's like a whole give and take where he can be sort of gruff with the audience and mean because it's all in character, and then
right.
that will sort of inspire new things. So I definitely understand having a persona that you can sort of lean back into, and be more creative. But yeah, but I was expecting that. I'm glad that the dinosaur mask made an appearance because I was hoping that I would see it at some point.
Yeah, we had this whole thing set up, but I always chicken out. I don't always, but I chicken out a lot of times. So we made it a little simpler, and I just moved her away. That's my children are a great help in making the music videos and helping with the
Sure.
dinosaur stuff. So
I It's funny. So this is a natural segue. When I was in seventh grade, my best friend and I had a rap group called the Artificial Implants, and we made a video for one of our songs called "Kick This Horse Hard," and we dressed up my brother as a horse. So and that basically was just putting a tennis racket cover on his head.
mm.
So I really hope that video doesn't exist anymore because that's something like that would destroy a career if it ever came out. But yeah, no, when you said that your kids help you with music videos, it reminded me of the one the one music video I made in seventh grade. But
Yeah, I have my girls are especially helping with this latest video that I've been making for a while for the song Deceiver. No, not Deceiver. Unrealized. And basically it's my youngest daughter walking around with my head off of my body. Um, so I've got most of it filmed. I've just been putting it together and taking a long time to put it together. So it's kind of interesting. Right now it's just pretty simple following. So, got to intercut stuff in there. Haven't figured that out yet.
yeah, well, that's one of the great things again about doing it in this time period is that you can do all of that. You can do your own videos, and TikTok is available and all this stuff. to sort of help. But yeah, no, I was watching one of your videos this morning where you're in the police box.
Oh yeah.
Is that for messages?
Yeah, that's for
Okay.
messages.
Yeah, it had a very much of a Doctor Who, Bill and Ted sort of vibe. It was like I knew exactly, where what it was all about. So it
Yeah,
was sort of
that was the first music video I've ever made, and it was a total. I just fell into it, and I love the way it came out. But yeah, this right behind me, we put that door up just recently, but basically there's a room in there, and we had filmed me out. I had an idea that we would film myself out in the back, and you'd be able to see the stars and blah blah blah. So we did that, and I looked at the footage, and you couldn't see anything. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. So so it was the same night. I was tired, so I just set up the camera on top of the cabinet, pushed back over here, and I stood in there, and I just pretended I was being shaking around. And then I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with that how does that fit in everything? And then I was flipping through some images on Google, and I found the Doctor Who box, and I was like, wait, that fits perfectly. It's easy to cut out because it's square, and I can fit it right in there, and it's perfect. And so that's when it happened. And it just so happened that I was shaking around in there. So if we make it shake, that works excellently. So yeah, I just fell into that one, and I really like that one a lot better than most of the others that I've done.
well, and it was a bonus for someone like me who recognized the police box and
Yeah.
got that little extra sort of thing. Of course, I then began to wonder: is there some sort of symbolism behind this that I'm unaware of, other than it's just a cool thing to have. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoy it. A lot of people enjoy it. I'm really glad about that, especially since it's my favorite so far. Um, when I made the Deceiver video, uh, it was just this crazy idea of, at the end, the dinosaur will pick up these things and it turns to eggs, and so they're eggs. And then somebody started asking, but what did the eggs become? Well, what's next? I was like, oh, maybe I got to put eggs in each video, make it sort of a storyline kind of thing. But I can't think that far ahead. It's just really hard.
Yeah, well, I remember uh, when I was at collegiate still, uh, they would have these lectures called the Robbie Steele lectures. I don't know if you remember, where they would get people to come in, and one of the people they got was MC Escher's son came in to talk about his father's drawings.
Mhm.
And there's one drawing in particular where it's his desk with alligators on it, like these mini alligators, and they're climbing all over his stuff. And Escher's kid said, I'm always asked, what does the clock symbolize? Time running out and all this stuff. And Escher's like, no. Those were just things my dad had on his desk. Like there's no symbolism in anything. So I always found that to be sort of bring a lot of levity to it. Like anytime I read, does the police box and the Titanosaur video symbolize? It's like, nah, he may have just found something that fit and it was easy to cut out. But yeah, you may have to put the eggs might mean something. You may need to
Well,
continue.
as we're talking here, actually, with the video for Dream Unrealized, I could probably fit a spot in there with the whole box, because that would make sense.
I mean, there could be a through line. Um, you know
That
that
that would that would work. That would work.
There you go. Yeah. And you know what? You don't even have to give me an executive producer credit or anything. But yeah, well, I'm really glad that I'm glad you're doing well. All things considered, especially with the pandemic and stuff. I know it's probably thrown a monkey wrench into a lot of things.
Well,
As
that's
it,
the thing, that like for me, because I've been doing this online the whole time for many years, it really actually hasn't. And it's actually been good because everybody's moved online. So I'm being found more
Right.
during this whole thing.
It's silver. Yeah. I mean, it's again, for someone like myself, also, as a writer who spends most of his time on the computer, this really hasn't been a major change. Um,
Right.
but it's great. It's great that it's sort of driving more people to find your music. And, it's, the other good thing is, I guess, since you have a studio at home and you're doing all the stuff by yourself, it's not like anything got canceled.
Right.
Um, so that's but it's great that you're, I look at how prolific you are, and it's really nice to kind of know that you're still putting stuff out, that you've got an EP's worth of material that we can look forward to, more videos. If people want to find your stuff, I know you have a Bandcamp. um, oh, by the way, my mom said she really enjoyed this interview. Hope you'll play his music for me. I will. I
All
will,
right.
Ma. I'll play some Titanosaur. Um, but yeah, people can find you on Bandcamp. I know that. Do you have any other places they can go?
Well, it's all the music's available on all the streaming services, Spotify. Yeah, just look up Titanosaur. I'm on all most of the social medias under Titanosaur Rocks. And yeah, just find me there and chit chat.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you're a fan of any of the bands we've talked about, Motorhead, Black Sabbath, Ramones, Red Fang. Um, Even if you're not, I would definitely give Titanosaur. It's great heavy music of a combination of that stuff, but it's just a lot of fun. I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, I enjoyed listening to it. Just, like you had said, some of the subject matter may be serious, but if you think of like Ramones or Motorhead with that kind of levity that they brought to it, it's very similar to that. So, and unless there was anything else that you wanted to bring up, I know people can find your videos on YouTube, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube. Unfortunately, I have one of those really long addresses on YouTube, so I couldn't even tell you. But yeah, if you look up Titanosaur and messages or Titanosaur and Deceiver, you'll find it. I've got the latest lyric video up there. This wretchedness just went up there a couple of days ago. So yeah, subscribe on YouTube. There are lots of videos coming. So definitely keep a lookout for that.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat, and I'm looking forward to listening to more of the music. And Heather just put up your Bandcamp account on Facebook so people can find it. But yeah, I got thumbs up for me. Listen to Titanosaur. Check out the music and the videos. And yeah, I'm looking forward to another police box in the next one.
Yeah, I think I can make that happen.
Cool.
All right.
Well, we will be in touch. Good luck with everything, and thanks again for chatting.
All right. Thank you very much. Good time.